good to see everyone here this evening. If you'll take your Bibles, please, and turn to the Song of Songs. We know it as the Song of Solomon. The Bible, in our first verse, says it's a Song of Songs, and we're looking at the superlative aspect of this song that Solomon wrote. Among all of his many songs that he wrote Proverbs and many Proverbs, but this is the superlative song, one that has great meaning, has meaning in Solomon's life. And it's one that we are studying, allowing the text to direct our minds. We talked in the introduction about the many interpretations of the Song of Solomon. It's looked at as in a spiritual way, the idea of coming of Jesus Christ, and how God's love for his church, how Jesus' love for his church is exemplified in the beauties of this psalm, or this song. And we're looking at it from the standpoint of the love of Shulamite girl for her shepherd lover, not King Solomon. And King Solomon loves her. He's captivated by her beauty. But true love is not going to be won by King Solomon. And so we're in the midst of that as we come into chapter 1, and we look at verse 12, is where the king sat at his table, but her heart somewhere else. And we've already looked at how Solomon in verses 8 through 10 viewed her. She was very beautiful, captivating to him. And so now, and in verse 11, the daughters of Jerusalem are those who are standing to the side of stage. You know, you can in a song or an opera, you can kind of bounce things off to those women. And those women are on the side of this Shulamite girl that's been taken as one of the going to be a queen or one of his wives. And so she's speaking truth of God off of them, and they reply, verse 11, "We will make thee plates of gold with studs of silver." Your hair is going to be wrapped up for the king, and she's already said that indeed she's impressed with King Solomon, but that's not where her true love is. That's not where her heart is. So anybody would be captivated by the power of King Solomon and all of his wisdom. And so the daughters of Jerusalem understand that. She's part of that. But she tells them some things that we're going to see beginning in chapter 2 that will be repeated 3 times in this particular song, which means to me it's a driving, repetitive point that we better get. And that's it. That you don't stir love before it's time. You don't force it. You can't buy it. That's that true love that God is exalting through Solomon, who wrote this by inspiration, but it's an indictment against all of his wives and concubines that he had. That indeed it was, I think it's why it's preserved for us to understand. So we're looking at it from that standpoint, and we appreciate those of you who are visiting, and we're in lesson 1. And we want to pick up in verses 12 following. While this is what she's thinking of her shepherd lover. While the king sat at his table, my spikenard went forth its fragrance. You know, she's beautified herself. My beloved is unto me as a bundle of myrrh that lieth betwixt my breasts. There was the wearing of a bottle or something of myrrh, of fragrance, that she gave off the perfume fragrance. She wore it as a string around her neck, between her breasts. My beloved is unto me as a cluster of henna flowers in the vineyards of En-gedi. That's a real place. This is not just made up of this is a faraway place, and I want to talk to you about it. It was a very good place. You can go to the middle of the Dead Sea, and you can go right at the middle of that, 30-something miles southeast of Jerusalem, and you go into this region where it's really desolate. But what happens is that it has the growth of cluster of cedar trees that go 8 to 10 feet high, and they have flowers that bloom. And a lot of the women would use those leaves to dye their skin a little bit yellow. And it was something that had the beautiful flowers, henna flowers, in the vineyards of En-gedi. And my beloved is unto me. She's looking at the one shepherd who comes from the fields, who comes from the regions where he looks after his flocks, not King Solomon from Jerusalem. And that's where her heart is. So in verse 15, the shepherd lover responds, "Behold, thou art fair, my love. Behold, thou art fair. Thine eyes are as doves." Thine eyes are as doves. Now, in question number 8, we had question number 8. What does that mean? Her eyes are as doves. Now, he's already called her a horse. She is, that's what Solomon, I mean, he paid her a compliment. We've already seen that. To a steed in Pharaoh's chariots, I have compared thee, O my love, to a steed in Pharaoh's chariots. It's a feminine aspect. It's a mare among all these stately horses. And she would stand out. And that's all he's saying. That's a compliment to her. It's not saying you're a horse or you're a bird. But it's the eyes of a dove. What does that mean? I've got all sorts of answers. And you got to find out what is one. Have you ever looked at a dove's eye? It's kind of scary. Because it's just there, penetrating. And that means she only has eyes for her lover. Her eyes are just on him. They can only look at one thing at a time. That's what a dove does. Well, I've never been that close around them, and that sounds good. So we were talking about, I only have eyes for you. I guess that's part of romantic love. But in chapter 7, we're going to observe that there's the thought about the doves. He says, "Thine eyes are as the pools in Heshbon." So if the eyes of a dove is how this Shulamite woman is being described, she's later going to be as the pools in Heshbon. Does that help you any? We're not talking about dove's eyes just, they're just scary. You want to look at one thing, staring at it. I won't have eyes for you. Or could it be the deep, soft, reflective eyes like the pools of Heshbon? That's kind of where I go. And when comparing their eyes, you take all of what God says on the subject, and you realize that those eyes are deep in a dove's eyes. And there's like the pools of Heshbon. Where's Heshbon? It's a real place. It's northwest of the Dead Sea, and there would be the steel pools there of water. It's not the Sea of Galilee, chopping up with Ben. It's steel, and it's deep, and it's colorful, and it's soft, and all of those things that we might connect with the dove. I think he's paying her a compliment when he describes her eyes are as doves. Thou art fair, my love. He is responding to her, and now she responds in verses 16 following. "Behold, thou art fair, my beloved, yea, pleasant. And our couch is what color?" All right, let's look at the context. The beams of our house are cedar. So they are together. She's looking at it from the standpoint of being with him. Remember, all this started that I was at the king's table. She's not thinking about a king. She's thinking about the shepherd boy. And it says, our couch is green. The beams of our house are cedars. What color is that? Maybe green. We're looking at green thing. Our rafters are firs. What color is that? Green. But here's the structure of this. When he says our couch is green, it's a word that Amos will use when about lying on their divans. They'd be on their beds of ivory, and on their divans or their couches would they lie. And so it's as if we're sitting on the divan, but we look up at the roof and the thatched roof and the cedar trees and the beams that are cedar. Green is our couch. That's what she dreamed. That's not a palace. That's not King Solomon's palace. That's a farmhouse. That's a countryside house. That's where her heart is. That's what she's dreaming of. She's daydreaming here. She'll have a dream in the later chapters at night, and she'll tell you that. But right now, that's where her heart is. That's what she's thinking about. And describes her. And then she describes further, I am the rose of Sharon, a lily of the valleys. And then the shepherd responds, as a lily among thorns, so is my love among the daughters. Daughters of what? Daughters of Jerusalem. They're back here off stage, and she'll be talking about them. But all the daughters of Jerusalem, which that group would be involved with, that would love to be Solomon's wife. They would love to be connected with him that way. She's the one that he's after. And so they honor her. And she can talk back and forth how she really feels about things. It's a wonderful way of how this poetry is setting forth. And you've got to put yourself in the minds of, I'm not looking at historical facts and stuff to remember. I'm looking at dialogue. I'm looking at figures of speech. I've got to get in my mind, if I'm going to interpret the Bible, I've got to interpret it according to the genre that we're dealing with. And so this is a song. It has figurative language. There was a compliment to be compared. I've got all these horses, not from Arabia, from Egypt. Solomon had them. He said, you stand out among all of them. And that was a compliment because they were stately horses. Eyes of a dove. You're not a bird brain. Your eyes are velvetly. It's a steel color. It's soft. And it's something that is comparing of, if you say, well, here's the courtship of marital love. Well, it can be involved in that. But it's that attraction. And money and power and prestige and wisdom of Solomon, it's captivating. Oh, let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. His love is better than wine. All the women would say that. But that's not where her heart is. So that's setting the stage of what we're speaking about. So I said the green, you could look, well, it is vibrant, it is alive, it is healthy, all of those things about green, but it could be, that's kind of the decor in our house that she sees her lover and her sharing. We. And that's not with Solomon, I don't think. But that's what we're looking at. So any questions or comments to bring us up to this point?
I think each one of these examples that you mentioned are nothing but contrast. Whether it be the most important mare of all these, or the dove versus, say, a buzzard. You wouldn't say, you got lines for a buzzard.
No.
And just the cow being green, as a shepherd, green was important to him.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's dead. Because the field, the live.
And she likes where he's from.
And the lily of the field versus the thorns.
Yeah.
So everything's a contrast. They're picking the best one of each one of those groups.
And that's Hebrew poetry. That's how Hebrew poetry, that's how the books of wisdom, there's a contrast, there's similes. We have to think in this term. So that's a great point about a contrast. And I think we see that here. So is it a contrast when he says, I am the rose of Sharon, a lily of the valleys? And it's what she thinks about herself. And you look, well, the lilies, so rose of Sharon. Where's Sharon? It's between Caesarea and Joppa. It's a plain there by the Mediterranean Sea. It's places where they could keep their flocks and watch after them. Well, there would be natural vegetation, the lily of the valleys, the rose of Sharon, those flowers that would naturally bloom there. She said, that's what I am. That's where I want to be. I'm coming from that root. I'm coming as if a flower blooming in that particular place. And so he responds, and here's your point, Norris, as a contrast, as a lily among thorns. Is that a compliment to you, ladies? It should be, but why do you compare me with thorns? That's not a high mark to overcome. You think you look at a bunch of thorns and I'm just a flower out there? I think a lot of flowers would shine better than the thorns. We've already talked about comparing to a bird, comparing to a horse, but that's a compliment because it's the point she stands out. And when you look at all the others, they're secondary. He's not putting a thing, well, all the daughters of Jerusalem, they're just a bunch of thorns. But I tell you, you shine pretty good. I guess I can take you. At least I won't get a thorn, will I? He's just, the contrast is a compliment. And that's the beauty. Yes, sir? Yeah. Among the daughters, you stand out there. I think that's the shepherd talking. I don't think it's Solomon. She's still engaged with this. The scenes have changed. So we come into lesson 2. Oh wait, let's talk. Who is the Rose of Sharon? I'm saying it's this Shulamite woman that says, I'm a daughter of my territory. That's the place I'm naturally coming from. I'm a lily of the valleys. I'm the Rose of Sharon. When that phrase comes up, what do you think about? How do people interpret the Rose of Sharon? We sing it sometimes, don't we? Jesus, the Rose of Sharon, 445 in our book. And you look at that song, it is depicting the idea of the love that's pure. I want it to blossom. Here's an author in the 1920s, I think, who wrote it, was picking something that here is one of beauty, that is set apart from all others. That's Jesus. And the song then goes in with that figurative language of being the blossom with all the purity of like you, Christ. May your sovereignty, may it endure. May that shining endure with your sovereignty, your purity, the honor that is given to you. The author took that and made that. So people, well, the Bible must equate it. Well, people have interpreted the Song of Solomon as being Christ and his love for the church. But I think here is the Shulamite woman describing herself from where she's coming from, the territory that identifies her with her shepherd lover. That's where he's working. And she says, I'm just regular old flower from there. No, you stand out among all the daughters of Jerusalem. So that's how he feels about her. Can you see why some would interpret that Solomon? We're just still talking about Solomon. There's no such thing as a shepherd lover in this whole song, or a whole song. I mean, it depends how you're going to look at it. You find people on the internet that'll take you a different direction. This is the route we're going. I think it fits very well too. Yes, sir. She's browned with the sun, and she didn't like what her brothers did to her. We talked about it, but she just kind of a country girl, and she's in love with a country boy. And Solomon is still captivated by her, and he wants her for himself. So here we come to lesson 2 in our outline, and that's verses 2 through the rest of this chapter. How distinguished is a Shulamite woman in the mind of her lover? How distinguished? We just kind of talked about that when we start verse 2. You stand out among all of them. Everybody kind of on that. Among all the daughters, you stand out as a lily among thorns. That you would be paying attention to the lilies. All right, in verses 3 through 6, what two characteristics of her lover does the Shulamite woman highlight by the apple tree comparison? Now we got to bring in an apple tree. Well, it blossoms and that's great, but what are the two characteristics that she describes her lover, and that would be resembling the functioning of an apple tree?
Shade and taste.
What about protection? Which is shade. And I know we're in the 80s at our temperature, but it's been 90 to 100. You know, I've been looking for shade when you're out there in the fields, and when you're out there, it's just a whole lot of things, and the cows are smarter than we are. They find the shade. We always stand out there, look around. They go for the shade. That's protection. So is my beloved among the sons. I sat down under his shadow with a great delight. Now, there may be the pleasantries of the harshness of the sun, but it's protection from the sun. And it's the shadow of the tree. And she delighted to sit down under his shadow. He's strong as an apple tree. He provides the shade. He provides the protection. And she delights in that. And what does he also possess that an apple tree will have? Fruit. And his fruit was sweet to my taste. He brought me to the banqueting house, and his banner over me was love. So we've left the apple tree comparison, but we got two aspects about the male, the manhood, the husband that is her delight, like the apple tree, shade, protection, brings forth fruit pleasant to the taste. And there again, that's what she thinks of her lover. There's the characteristics of the one you fall in love with. And that's the beauty of this song. But we have a break here. And so after describing her, he's talked about her, and she describes him. We have a break. And what does it say? What is sworn to about love in verse 7? Let's read it together. I adjure you, so that's swearing. I'm bringing you under an oath, O daughters of Jerusalem. This is serious things. And if you're going to agree with this, I'm putting it not, well, let's just answer some questions. I'm bringing you under oath. You know it's true, and you swear that it's true. I adjure you. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the roes or by the hinds of the field. He's swearing about that. That doesn't mean that we're disrespecting God, because he created those. We apply the New Testament principle. You better keep your word. But here is the oath. Oath taking, and to do so in the name of Jehovah was something commanded the Old Testament people. They were commanded to swear by Jehovah. And here she is by the roes of the hinds of the field, because that's the territory they're living in. That's where her heart is. That you stir not up nor awake my love until what? Bible translation, he pleases or it pleases. Until it arise, it's going to rise in him. Till it arise in her. You don't stir it up before it's time. And he'll repeat this, and then he'll repeat it again. She will. All through it, because we're going to see this repetition of what she thinks of him, and she dreams of him, and all the things that are going to happen where she's not with him. And she was saying, you don't stir it up. What's Solomon doing? I'm taking you to be my wife, and everybody would like to be my wife. And even you know that. And she admits it, verse 2 of chapter 1. She's with the daughters, and this is what that's pretty special. But he hasn't captivated her heart. And that's why I think it's preserved for us. That the one we marry, the one we fall in love with, is the one that we marry, sets apart all others. That is something that we must feel. And it was very difficult when you had under the times that people lived. A lot of times people were paired off when they were little kids. You had the parents determining who you were going to belong to. Here she is going to belong to the King Solomon because of circumstances in her time. But she just saying, and that's why we kind of look at this, well, at least we allow courtship, aren't we? But we need to be very careful about whom we marry. We ought to be very careful in vetting out who we marry. That's why dating is important. I heard one man say that you go in and you start dating and you have your eyes wide open when you're courting someone, and then when you marry them, you kind of squint your eyes a little bit and let things go. Probably not too dumb to do that. because you see all their faults. If you're really looking at them, you see their faults and all of that, and you know that going in. And then there's some things that you don't need to be hammering on all the time because you learn who they are. Sometimes the eyes are wide open at the beginning, but sometimes it gets to be the opposite, and then you're having trouble. Because you say, I didn't know that was going to happen. Well, you're married till death do you part, and you can't kill her. She can't kill you. That wouldn't be good. So there's some wisdom here about true love, that courting and all those things, that's what we should be thinking about. But this is just the attractiveness. That's what this song is about, and that where her heart is. Okay, there's the warning. And just so you'll see it, chapter 3 and verse 5, I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, that same thing is taking place, and we'll see it in the latter chapters as well. So we'll be coming back to that pretty soon. Question 4, what is the lover like when characterized as a roe or young hart? Because here's the Shulamite said, the voice of my beloved, I behold he cometh, leaping upon the mountains, skipping upon the hills. My beloved is like a roe or a young hart. Some of your versions have it like a stag and gazelle. And that's what he's like. Behold, he standeth behind our wall. He looketh in at the window. He glanceth through the lattice. And then he's going to run off. But have you ever had a deer looking at you through the window? I've been out in the country where all of a sudden I look up and there's a deer looking at you. And they're just staring. And he's looking. And her mind is upon him. He's like a roe or a young hart to stand. Behold, he standeth behind our wall. He's skipping upon the hills. He has life. He has vitality. And here there's a joyous jumping, and there's the picture. And here he is, and there he's not. He's looking at you through the wall, and you think, well, I go talk to him, and he'll be gone. And so he characterizes her lover like that. So what is the Shulamite lover doing when standing behind the wall? Or the lattice work, if there's a different word of wall there than we usually have as window. But maybe lattice work, it's out in the countryside. He's looking. And he stands behind our wall. He looketh in at the windows. He gleaneth through the lattice. So he's watching. And then, so that's what he's doing there. Question 6, what time of year is it when the Shulamite's lover calls on her? So my beloved spake unto me, rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. For lo, what has passed? What time of year are we talking about? Springtime. Winter is past. Springtime. The rain is over and gone. What's appearing? The flowers appear on the earth. I hear the birds. The time of the singing of birds is come. And the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. The fig tree ripeneth her green figs, and the vines are in blossom. They give forth their fragrance. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. My dove, thou art in the clefts of the rock, in the culvert of the steep place. Let me see thy countenance. Let me hear thy voice. For sweet is thy voice, and thy countenance is comely. So here we have the shepherd lover. He is encouraging her to come with him. He's been staring through the lattice, and now he speaks. And we find the time of year it's got to be springtime. And your blossoms are going, you hear the turtle doves, the cooing of the doves. You know spring is there. Have you enjoyed springtime? Yeah, especially since hot August is here. But you remember that. And when did you fall in love? Did it happen in springtime? Heart grows fonder in springtime, right? Is that when you went steady every year with a different boy? Springtime. We fall in love. All of those things are there. It's a beauty of that. Our heart is uplifted, and there's the sense of when this love is being set forth in their hearts. And it's a beautiful picture of the things that are happening in nature that we connect it with that. It's the singing of birds. It's the fig ripening on the green trees. It's the growing season. There's a fragrance that you have. It hits all of our senses. The smell, the sight, the touch, all of those things that are part of human love. All of those things are activated. And that's what we see taking place in here. So I think that's a beautiful picture of that time of year when I think usually that's man's heart grows fonder, doesn't it? And that's that time of year? Or have I just dreamed up something? All right, any questions or comments?
Spring, we usually use the word rejuvenation, and that's from the Latin for young, and so it's kind of a good comparison. Time of rejuvenation when things are coming to life, and
That's right.
young are in love.
Yeah. And that's just a beautiful time. And hope everybody gets to enjoy that. All right, question number 7. What two qualities of the Shulamite woman does the shepherd lover praise her in verse 14? Now notice, he's calling her my dove. She got eyes like doves. Eyes are like that, fair, and they're velvety, they're deep, they're blue, they mirror things that are deep and all of those things. But where it says, oh my dove, thou art in the clefts of the rock. A lot of times the doves will be in a protected place. In the clefts of the rocks, I can't get there. It's a place that you can't get. In the culvert of the steep place, might be hard to reach. And yet he is setting forth two qualities of this woman does he praise her for. So I can't get to you, but I want to see your countenance. I like to see you up close instead of you're hidden, is the picture that we see there. Let me hear thy voice. What two qualities does he praise her with? And her voice, right? And when you think about the voice of the one you love, you want to hear that voice. That's the voice you want to hear. And when you hear that voice, there's all of the things that you've experienced together, all of those things is comforting. Kathy's voice is special. And when you're away from one another so long, if I just hear your voice, that's good. And that's what you're attracted to. And that's the way it should be. It should be. But the voice and thy countenance is comely, it's beautiful, it's fair. I know your beauty, and I love your voice, but you're stuck in that cleft, and I can't get there. We can't be together. There's always the barrier there, but they long for it. That's the point of the song. It's the longing for it, and here are the qualities that they can only imagine. He's thought of her eyes. He's thought of her beauty, the countenance of just her beauty, and he's thought of her voice. But she's hidden from him. And but that doesn't take away the things that you remember. And that's the beauty of love too. When you're separated for so long a time, you can hear her voice in your mind, or his voice, and you can see the person in your mind. And it kind of helps you in the days of loneliness. And that's what true love ought to be about. What does the Shulamite woman feel regarding her beloved? And what What is she to know about his feelings toward her? What are his feelings toward her? What does she feel about him? And vice versa. Take us, the foxes, the little foxes. They could have been the jackals that they call that, sometimes 15 inches high. You could get one. She could be involved in doing that. Take us, the foxes, the little foxes that spoil the vineyards. It's a growing season, and all it's springtime, and we don't want any barriers, for our vineyards are in blossom. Then she says, my beloved is mine, and I am his. He feedeth his flock among the lilies. I can just be a lily of the valley. That's good enough for me. She said that, chapter 2 and verse 1. You're a lily among thorns. You stand out. I see a lot of the thorns out there. He's mine, I'm his. He feedeth his flock among the lilies until the day be cool and the shadows flee away. When's that? When is the day cool? Maybe not here, but normal. Yeah, it's nighttime. It is here. It gets cooler here than it is at the daytime. Till the day be cool and the shadows flee away, turn, my beloved, and be thou like a roe or a young hart, a stag, male stag, or like a deer, young hart, upon the mountains of Bether. Where is that located? We found in Gedi. We have found Heshbon. Told you where they're located. One's on the west side of middle of the Dead Sea. One's the northwest side of that. Where's Bethar? Sound like a Mount Bethar or Bether. We don't know. But I know what it means. And all through just how that word is used, it's a word of separation. It's like the cleft of rocks, cleft of mountains. And I think she is knowing he's going to be taking care of the flocks out in the field during the day. You know what she longs for? When it comes nighttime, they can enjoy their pleasure together. And I think it's on the mountains of Bethar. There's the separation and the idea of the cleavage of the woman. Because there's no Bethar that I know of that I can go find on a map. But he used that term. She's longing for that. And there's that physical, marital love. That the fire should always be kindled there. And that becomes a very important part of the story as well. What does the Shulamite woman want her beloved to do at the end of the day? We just talked about that. And that's the end of that question. So, again, they can't get together. She hears his voice, and she has to talk to the ladies about, as she thinks about him. You can't stir it up until it's ready, till it's time. He's thinking about her, but she's in a cleft and protected, and we want to be together, and she wants that. But I am his, and he is mine. What a wonderful picture of what God has instituted marriage to be like. Let each man have his own what? Wives? Let him have his own wives no, his own wife. That's New Testament. That's what was put into place when God perfected the way he's dealing with mankind through Jesus Christ and the gospel. But the sexual love between a man and a woman that belong to each other, I belong to him and he belongs to me, that sort of thing. It's just beautiful, true love. That's the physical side of it. I think that's what the Song of Solomon is advocating. And that love can be stirred up, and it has to be. But don't stir it up before it's time, because that's where her heart is. And it will continue to be there. And we'll pick up lesson 3. I don't know what time it is. We got 2 minutes. You want to add anything to what we've looked at? All right, we'll start with chapter 3. By night on my bed, I sought him whom my soul loveth. What is she doing now? She's been daydreaming when King Solomon, she's sitting at his table. What's happening now? I'm not dreaming. I'm sleeping. And she dreams of him. And it becomes a drama as well. And Lord willing, we'll talk about that next time. Thank you.